Call to order this meeting of the Franklin Municipal Planning Commission for August the 28th, 2025. We'll start with roll call tonight. Commissioner Allen.
Present.
Commissioner Franks. Commissioner Lindsay is here. Commissioner Orr.
Present.
Commissioner Mann.
Here.
Commissioner McLemore.
Present.
Commissioner Williamson.
Here.
And Alderman Peterson.
Here.
This part of the meeting is open for citizen comments. This is open for citizens to be heard on any item, any issue or concern. If you would like to speak on a specific item on the agenda, please wait until the citizen comment period for that item. For all citizen comments, we ask that you fill out a speaker card and hand it to our staff. And you can come up to the microphone, state your name and address, and then we ask you to limit your comments to two minutes. So, are there any citizens who would like to speak to the commission at this time? Seeing none, the next item on our agenda is approval of our minutes. This is consideration of approval of the July 24th, 2025 Municipal Planning Commission minutes. Is there a motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
And seconded by
Peterson.
So we have a proper motion and a second. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? By roll call vote, Commissioner Allen,
Aye.
Commissioner Franks, Commissioner Lindsay is aye, Commissioner Orr,
Aye.
Commissioner Mann,
I'll abstain, I wasn't here.
Commissioner McLemore,
Aye.
Commissioner Williamson,
Aye.
and Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
The motion passes. Are there announcements?
I do have a few announcements tonight. I think all of you should have received an email from me about the urban plan workshop on October 1st. Just let us know at your earliest convenience if you will be able to attend. You can let any of our staff members know and they'll make sure Chelsea or I are aware. But if you respond to the email, you can either email me or Chelsea. And then we're really hopeful that the majority of you can participate because I think it's going to be a really fun, interactive kind of half-day simulation of a development review and a kind of creation of the plan and then going through the review process with a mock city council. And then additionally, that serves as your 4 hours of annual training credits. So I would really encourage you to try to make that work if you're able. If you're not able to do that, we are also having the Tennessee chapter of the American Planning Association conference here in Franklin in October, October 20th through 22nd. There will be a training, a 4-hour training, I believe it'll be 4 hours at that conference as well for BZA members and planning commissioners. So if you would like to attend that, we don't have a final agenda yet, so I don't know exactly which day and time it will be. But if you're interested, just reach out to me or I'll give you more details, of course, as those times come along. I'll send those out to you so you have those, and you can always let me know if you'd like to attend that as well. If you're interested in attending the full conference, also contact me and we can chat about that. I didn't budget for a lot of conference registrations, but I think we could accommodate it given that it's local. So that's all I have. Just some
Okay.
opportunities for continuing ed.
Right. Thank you, Emily.
I had that on my calendar.
The morning is,
The morning, the urban plan workshop is October 1st from 8 to noon.
from 8 to noon. And where is that going to be?
It's going to be at Eastern Flank.
Okay, I just didn't go back to
Yeah, 8 to noon, yes.
8 to noon. Okay.
Thank you for asking that. I forgot to include that.
Okay. Right. The next item is consideration of approval of items 4 through 6 and items 8 through 13 on the consent agenda. Is there a motion?
Move for approval.
Second. Commissioner Allen.
Okay, by roll call vote, Commissioner Allen,
Aye.
Commissioner Lindsay votes aye, Commissioner Orr,
Aye.
Commissioner Mann,
Yes.
Commissioner McLemore,
Aye.
Commissioner Williamson,
Aye.
and Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
And motion passes. We have approved the consent agenda. Item number 3. This is the Andover Park PUD subdivision final plat. We are to declare the agreement to be in default, authorizing the release of 50% of surety and the calling of the other 50% of the surety for the green infrastructure improvement. So we'll start with staff presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry. There you go.
In 2015, the Board of Mayor and Aldermen approved Andover Park PUD subdivision. The 5 homes were subsequently constructed shortly thereafter. All of the required site improvements have been satisfactory completed, except for a portion of the green infrastructure. While the green infrastructure improvement amount was reduced by 75% in 2016, attempts by the developer, Tennessee Valley Homes, and staff to complete the green infrastructure improvement resulted in the residents modifying some of the improvements that were previously installed. Based on the age of this subdivision and that minimal stormwater from this site enters the Liberty Hills Pond across the street to the south, which the city will be restoring, staff recommends that 50% of the $3,250 cash performance surety, $1,625 be returned to the developer and 50% be deposited into the city stormwater fund for use on the Liberty Hills Pond restoration project that will be getting underway soon. This recommendation is based on the Andover Park stormwater presently funneling into the Liberty Hills Pond. Releasing 50% of the surety and calling the remainder of the surety will allow the city to close out this project, avoid further disruption to the property owners, some of which may not be the original owners, and utilizing funds needed towards stormwater improvement in the immediate area. Staff recommends that FMPC declare the agreement to be in default, release 50% of the $3,250 cash performance surety, which equals $1,625, and call the remainder of the surety, $1,625, due to the modification to the original approved green infrastructure improvements and resulting stormwater flows into Liberty Ponds, which is being restored by the city project in near future.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there anyone here from the public who wishes to speak to this item? Seeing none, is there a motion for the item?
Move for approval.
So your motion is consistent with the
We should call the surety bond.
Yeah.
Yes.
Second.
and there's
It was Allen. She beat me, Allen.
Alma.
Yeah.
Alma second. Is there any further discussion? Sure.
I just want to say thank you for being on top of these. I know this was a big initiative of yours, Vern, starting several years ago. And it requires a lot of inspections and a lot of follow-up with the developers. But, we sit here and spend a lot of time going over plans, and a lot of what we see is landscaping on pictures. And it's not planted yet, it's not installed yet, but it's critical to the aesthetics of the project. And this one actually serves a function to a retention pond. And so, I will always give the developer the opportunity to defend themselves, speak up before we call it. But I think it's really important that we continue to do this, because otherwise we're spending a lot of time approving plans for no reason. So I just want to say thank you for your diligence on this, and I applaud your efforts.
Thank you.
Okay. Item number 7.
You gonna vote?
I'm sorry. Okay, Commissioner Allen,
Aye.
Commissioner Lindsay votes aye, Commissioner Orr,
Aye.
Commissioner Mann,
Yes.
Commissioner McLemore,
Aye.
Commissioner Williamson,
Aye.
and Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
The motion passes. Okay, item number 7, the Lakeview Commercial Park Subdivision Site Plan, Lot 20, Revision 1, declare the agreement to be in default, authorizing the calling of the surety for the green infrastructure improvement. Staff presentation?
Thank you. Lakeview Commercial Park subdivision was approved with conditions on February 19th, 2020. The performance was signed on June 5th, 2020. The cashier's check was issued on June 5th, 2020. The city received an action request for May 21st, 2021, asking to be released from performance and establish a 1-year maintenance agreement. The request was granted, and the surety was reduced from $11,000 to $2,500. Every year since 2021, the green infrastructure improvement has been inspected, but release of the maintenance agreement has been denied because of deficiencies. On May 16th, 2025 agenda, the inspector could not release the maintenance agreement because of deficiencies, and the developer was given 3 months to correct the issue, or the surety would be recommended to be called by FMPC. A letter was mailed and email sent to Dan Brazel with Master Plans LLC with no response. Staff recommends that the FMPC declare the performance agreement for Lakeview Commercial Park Subdivision, Site Plan Lot 20, Revision 1, to be in default and authorize the calling of the agreement and surety for the completion of the improvement.
Okay, thank you. Anyone from the public wish to speak to this item? Seeing none, is there a motion on this item?
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a proper motion by Commissioner Mann, seconded by Commissioner Orr. Is there any questions? Any further discussion? Hearing none, by roll call, Commissioner Allen.
Aye.
Commissioner Lindsay votes aye. Commissioner Orr.
Aye.
Commissioner Mann.
Yes.
Commissioner McLemore.
Aye.
Commissioner Williamson.
Aye.
And Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
That motion passes. Okay, item number 14 is the consideration of ordinance 2025-25, an ordinance to amend as part of an annual update various chapters of the Franklin zoning ordinance text, including signage, uses, streetlights, performance agreements, floodplain regulations, state law changes, and to amend the zoning map, including rezoning of 171 Hillhaven Lane and 370 Franklin Road to the Civic Institutional District, and 171 Hillhaven Lane and the parcel southwest of Mac Hatcher Parkway and Aldersgate Way to the Historic Preservation Overlay District. Start with staff presentation. Kelly?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
This is the annual zoning ordinance update, and we've held a series of joint conceptual workshop discussions starting in March this year. This presentation is an overview of the text amendments and several rezonings, as the chairman mentioned. There are several sign changes in this year's update. The first is to allow for halo illumination, which is that soft backlit lighting that goes toward the back of the sign on the structure itself. The next is to allow canopy signs above the canopy, which is a more modern approach. The next is to allow for irregular shapes for those hanging projecting arm signs. It could be any shape, but the image in this slide is a teapot. We've had a lot of discussions about flags. Based on all of the input, what is proposed is to create an exemption in residential districts and on residential lots in the PD district. So for up to 90 days per calendar year, so about 3 months, flags up to 40 square feet, which includes the standard American flag size, shall be exempt from the quantity and the placement requirements. So it could be an unlimited number and placed anywhere on the lot. There's also some amendments adding a minimum setback for ground-mounted flagpoles of 10 feet so that the flag itself isn't flying over other properties, and to add a maximum size for wall-mounted flagpoles of 5 by 8 for flag size. There's a use change that hasn't been discussed at Joint Conceptual Workshop to date. It is to allow for the wrecker service use type to be in the light industrial district. It's currently only permitted in the HI or heavy industrial district. This arose out of a notice of violation situation, but after further research, there are a series of wrecker service uses in the LI district, and there haven't been complaints about them. So this proposes to add the wrecker service into the light industrial district. Next is performance bonds, and this is to allow performance bonds as an option in addition to letters of credit and cashier's checks to secure the surety for improvements related to a development project. Next is streetlights. This proposes to add some language that when streetlights are owned and maintained by Middle Tennessee Electric, the city would prefer these 4 streetlight options that are in the MTE manual for streetlights because they help reduce light pollution. There are a couple of state law changes that affect our zoning ordinance. The first is a Board of Zoning Appeals change. Right now, any disputes in zoning district boundaries go to the BZA for a ruling, an interpretation on that line. And the state law change allows staff to have an initial interpretation and ruling on that, thereby taking out the process to have to go to BZA. This mostly impacts us with the letters of map revision in the floodplain that always have to go to the BZA when they've already been approved at the FEMA level. It's been more of a standard practice, but now staff can just accept that as a change. The second one is related to vesting, and it's some wording changes. So the vesting period used to start when a plan was approved, and the state law has been changed to say when the plan is submitted and determined to substantially comply with the local development ordinance and regulations. So you'll see those changes in the ordinance, but they really don't impact the way that we do things, and so it better syncs with our process. Next is a proposed change to the floodplain standards, and Shannon McCoy is going to provide some information on that, and then I'll come back for the rezonings, and then we'll have discussion.
Thank you, Kelly. Good evening. So we did discuss this at joint conceptual workshop, and we're looking to see about reducing the cumulative time frame from 5 years to 1 year for substantial improvement or substantial damage. A little background. Staff received a request from an alderman to address routine maintenance in the floodplain, such as roof replacement, painting, that sort of thing. Based on the information that staff received from FEMA, and the state, we were advised we can't make exemptions, or that would be a violation of NFIP. So staff put their heads together. We've looked, and the best thing we can figure to try to get at this is to reduce the time frame to 1 year, from 5 years down to 1 year. Hopefully everyone understands what substantial damage and substantial improvement is, but let's take a second. So if at any point currently over a 5-year period, a structure that's in the floodplain, it doesn't matter if it's residential or if it's a non-residential building, but if at any time over a 5-year period, the structure has 50% of its value in improvements and or damage. So if, as an example, if someone makes a renovation on their house and they're at 30%, 2 years from now, they have a fire, a flood, tree falls, or they just decide to do more improvements. If they have another 25%, they've surpassed that 50% mark and would have to bring the structure into compliance with current standards, which would mean for residential, elevating the structure. Non-residential could be elevating it, or it could be dry flood-proofing it. So the overall policy for substantial improvement and substantial damage is to gain compliance and have safer, more sustainable buildings. It's important. We're promoting safer structures by reducing injury, loss of life, and property damage, reducing future flood risk by preventing repeat losses, controlling long-term costs by saving money over time for property owners and the public, ensuring fair, consistent enforcement with equal treatment across all properties, maintaining NFIP participation for access to flood insurance and aid, and encouraging resilient rebuilding with stronger structures after disasters. The recommendation: substantial damage and improvement are crucial tools to gaining compliance and having safer structures in the floodplain. Some of you may remember, some of you may not, but we did have substantial damage time frame set at 10 years a few years ago, and it was reduced down to 5 years in 2020. So reducing it again kind of feels like we're going against best practices. The CRS rating, which is the community rating system that the city participates in, and we're at a Class 8, which gives all property owners in the floodplain a 10% discount on their flood insurance. If we do change back to 1 year, it will not impact that rating. We won't lose enough points that it would drop us to a Class 9 and create a negative effect on the discounts. We did find out at the state conference at the end of July that the state of Tennessee is looking to update the model ordinance within the next year to 2 years. And they expect that the model ordinance is going to reflect the 5-year cumulative time frame. So staff would recommend keeping the 5-year cumulative time frame until the state model is updated,
and released. Although this ordinance update has the alderman requested change in it. So,
But you're recommending that we keep the 5-year.
staff's recommendation would be to keep the 5-year until at least finding out what the state's model ordinance is going to reflect.
Thank you, Shanna. Moving on to just several rezonings. The first one is a triangular property that's owned by the city that has frontage along Mac Hatcher. It's adjacent to the Franklin Road Historic District and also touches Harlansdale Farm. And the proposal here is to add the HPO, or Historic Preservation Overlay District, to it. This property was recommended for that by the Historic Zoning Commission earlier this month. The second one is to rezone the Creekside House to the Civic Institutional District. It is also now recently owned by the city and will match the zoning district that surrounds it with the CI district for a future park. And the last one is a property off Hillhaven Lane. It is owned by Franklin's Charge, but will be transferred to city ownership in the coming time frame. And it will be a future trailhead for the park at Roper's Knob. And so both the HPO and the CI districts are recommended here. And this went to historic zoning as well, and they recommended favorably for it too. Our anticipated timeline going forward is that it go to BOMA work session in September, first reading, going all the way through to third reading by the end of November for an effective date of January 1, 2026. And we'll take any questions.
Just on this, or on the entire?
On everything.
On anything? Yes.
Commission. Okay, so I have two things that I have major concerns with. The first being the flags. I've kind of been knocked off my leg. I didn't think that it was okay. I'm shocked by the fact that we have for 90 days the unlimited quantity and placement of flags up to 40 feet wide in size for 90 days. I didn't feel like that was the consensus of our discussion. I know we batted that around, but I just didn't feel like that was the consensus. That's not what when I saw the picture of those, even those small flags, that whole yard covered with all those small flags, but being able to have unlimited, there's some people who would actually do that, by the way, that would fill their flag. I have a problem. I won't be able to support that part of this change for having that up to 90 days. To me, that's excessive. So I have a problem with that. The other issue I have, and geez, the older I get, the more my mind. I'm back with you on that. You know, for when we're talking about the flood zone, floodplain having substantial damage, I understand whoever that alderman's concerned, but going down from 10 years to 5 years to 1 year, that, in my opinion, places an undue burden on a homeowner who's, first of all, been hit by a flood, and then you have 1 year to do that. My God, okay? The number of people who do not have flood insurance, who have insurance thinking I'm covered by flood, not knowing that you are not covered by flood with regular, and then to go from 5 years to 1 year, I just could not, in good conscience, I will not support that. If the state wants to come along, and 5 years is a long time, but still, if the state, I think that we should stay where we are. If the state comes along and goes to 2, and if we want to eventually bring it down, 5 years is quite a while, but I will not support that 1 year going from 5 to 1 year. I just will not. Because then what are we going to do as a city? Are we going to take their house? Or is that what we're going to do? Because if that's the law, what are we going to do? We're not going to be owners of properties. I just don't feel like that's the right move to make. Okay, done.
Okay, we need to have a motion on the floor. So is there a motion on this item?
How would you propose, Chair, that we make a motion since there's so many items and there's...
We can amend,
Okay.
and I'll take the lead on that.
I didn't make a motion. I was asking how we do make a motion since there's so many different particulars. I can craft one, but I'll let somebody else.
You can start with a main motion and then you can make further amendments after that as they come to your mind.
Okay. I will make a main motion to approve all of the changes that are reflected in this presentation, with the exception of the change to the flood. I think that should also remain at 5 years.
And I will second.
They're recommending,
You're recommending 5 years.
yeah, they're recommending 5 years. So
No,
that's-
this,
Well, no.
no, this
No,
says
the
one.
ordinance update is 1 year.
Is
but
1 year.
We're recommending
Yeah.
5.
That's
Yes, it
So is
may
there-
be cleaner to do that as an amendment because I'd recommend that you strike the
Strike it,
language
yes.
from this ordinance
Strike
or
it.
remove the amended language for the
Yes.
cumulative and
I think you're doing it correctly.
timeframes.
To approve the
Yeah,
motion.
okay. I didn't want to make a motion that I couldn't support
You need to
because
Okay.
I can't support
This
that.
will
So
be-
I'd be making a motion that I
It'll
can't.
just be a main motion.
You're doing
And
it
you can come
correctly.
back and-
Okay.
Striking it.
Move for approval.
Okay, we have a motion for approval and second by
Of all of the
Commissioner
proposed
Orr.
zoning changes.
But he said striking it, right?
He moved for approval.
The main motion is currently move for approval of the ordinance, and then subsequent amendments will be motioned at a
Yes.
later time.
Okay.
So
That's fine.
And I would be remiss if I didn't make this amendment. So I will make a motion to amend the ordinance to conform with staff's recommendation for the substantial damage and substantial improvement provisions, keeping the language at 5 years and striking the language to 1 year.
I'll second that amendment.
And I will further state that it's a complicated process. It's undergoing revision both at the state level, as Shanna described, but it's also, there are new documents that are feeding into the International Building Code that recommend even more stringent standards for things well beyond just a substantial damage determination. Substantial damage, I hope that you all understood the explanation. You can experience substantial damage from a hailstorm, a fire in your house, a tornado knocking your house down, and a flood. And we typically describe it with respect to having a flood that causes more than 50% damage. And the provision is that if you sustain substantial damage, and part of my day-to-day job is that I write letters of substantial damage where I declare people to be more than 50% damaged. It opens other doors with respect to insurance. It allows people to qualify for increased cost of compliance insurance. It's an important thing. Substantial improvement plays in the same way. If you voluntarily spend money to add an addition to your house, that adds into any damage you may have sustained. So, and from the perspective of 5 years versus 1 year, if the cumulative period is just 1 year, that means that you can do, if you elect to do substantial improvements, you can add up to 49% of the value of your house to your house without ever bringing it into compliance with the floodplain ordinance. If you're below the ordinance requirements, if you're subject to flooding, then you do yourself a disservice. You put other people at risk when you decide you're tired of fooling with it, and you sell your house. A new innocent victim comes along thinking he's got a good opportunity. The way I look at it, if you have a $200,000 house and it sustains damage or you improve it, a $200,000 house can become a $300,000 house without you bringing it into compliance. 1 year later, that $300,000 house can become a $450,000 house without ever being brought into compliance. And 1 year later, that $450,000 house can become a $675,000 house without ever being brought into compliance with the floodplain ordinance. And that's the reason that the provision is in the FEMA requirements to start with. So my motion was to strike that language and,
I second it.
yeah, and second it.
Mr. Chair, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
And I ask this honestly. Is there, we talk about this in the context of residential, and I wholeheartedly agree with you. Is it worthwhile to talk about it with a distinction of commercial versus residential? And with commercial, we talk about that susceptible buyer, but a commercial, it's a different buyer. You have they have a lot more opportunity to do their diligence and much more sophisticated, theoretically. Now, you're not living there. What is just I would love to get your thoughts on the distinction between commercial and residential.
Typically, commercial is easier to bring into compliance because you're permitted by FEMA to floodproof a commercial building rather than elevating the commercial building.
Correct, and McDonald's on 96, new 96, just recently, went through renovations and ended up tearing the whole thing down and rebuilding. And they went through the flood proofing method rather than elevating. So not every non-residential building would necessarily, I think, want to elevate.
Yeah.
They probably
there's
would
other-
rather dry flood proof, but we don't have as many non-residential buildings in the floodplain as we do residential buildings.
Okay. That's very helpful. Thanks for that context.
Any other comments? Ready to vote?
On that amendment?
On the amendment. Commissioner Allen,
Aye.
Commissioner Lindsay votes aye, Commissioner Orr,
Aye.
Commissioner Mann,
Yes.
Commissioner McLemore,
Aye.
Commissioner Williamson,
Aye.
and Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
That amendment passes unanimously. Okay, is there any other discussion, any other amendments?
Forget about the flags. I'm done.
Okay. Hearing no further discussion, the main motion is to approve the ordinance with now amended language relative to floodplain issues. Again, by roll call vote, Commissioner Allen,
Aye.
Commissioner Lindsay votes aye, Commissioner Orr,
Aye.
Commissioner Mann,
Yes.
Commissioner McLemore,
Aye.
Commissioner Williamson,
Aye.
and Alderman Peterson. The motion passes unanimously. Okay, anything further?
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, can I say one thing?
Sure.
Earlier, when I made my comments about the performance agreements, I realized that I had apparel on branded with my employer on it. I just want to make very clear, it's our company policy, that my opinions are my own and I wasn't speaking on behalf of my employer. So that's why I took it off. I know that sounds silly, but I want to make that very clear. Thanks.
Great. Thank you. Is there any further business? Seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
We have proper motion by Commissioner Orr and a second by Commissioner Allen. By roll call, Commissioner Allen,
Aye.
Commissioner Lindsay votes aye, Commissioner Orr,
Aye.
Commissioner Mann,
Yes.
Commissioner McLemore,
Aye.
Commissioner Williamson,
Aye.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously. We are adjourned.